Hi, I'm James McGuire, and on today's eSpeaks, we're talking about digital transformation, a term that is so overused it sometimes seems like a cliche, and yet digital transformation is a vital concept that is reshaping business in dramatic ways. Today, we're going to dig inside the platitudes and find some nuggets of actionable information. To discuss that, I'm joined by a very special guest. With me is Michael Krigsman, analyst, writer, thought leader, and founder and host of CXO Talk. Michael, thank you very much for joining us today.
James, it's great to see you. Thank you for inviting me. I'm just thrilled to speak with you.
Absolutely. And, I've got some great, wonderful questions. But before that, I'd like to ask you, Michael, the tough one. Are you ready for Thanksgiving? And if so, what is your favorite side dish for Thanksgiving?
I'm definitely ready for Thanksgiving. And, my wife has ordered a turkey from a local farm. So it's
Great.
not a side dish, but it's going to be a
Right.
great turkey. And so I'm very excited.
Okay. So it's sort of farm to table. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Michael, it's kind of interesting in that digital transformation isn't the same for all companies. For instance, what about digital transformation for built into the cloud companies, the so-called native companies, versus the traditional legacy companies? What's your sense on that?
It's a really interesting point. For a company that's born in the cloud, that presumably is fully digital,
Mhm.
what does digital transformation actually mean in
Right.
that case?
Hmm.
It's not really clear, because if you're born in the cloud, you should already be there.
Hmm.
Now, maybe you offer legacy products as well, but that doesn't really necessarily make any sense if you're born in the cloud. On the other hand, if you're a traditional company with existing customers, products, services, revenue streams, an employee base,
Hmm.
and we do things the way we do them. We have our processes, and our processes have worked for the last, 10 years, 50 years, 100
Right.
years. I've interviewed many companies that are 100 years older or more on
Hmm.
CXO Talk. Well, that means that, digital transformation makes a lot of sense in that case.
Hmm.
So I think you're absolutely right. Drawing that distinction between existing companies that have been around for a while with those processes, people, and so forth, products, revenue streams, on the one hand, versus born in the cloud companies that presumably are already digitally there's nothing to transform. We're there. I think it's a great distinction.
I think there's probably a company out there. We'd have to explore to see if it really exists. That say they were born in 2014, and they're pretty good with data analytics, but maybe they're circa 2019 on data analytics. They're not really all the way up to 2021 analytics. I mean, maybe there's still a little smidgen of digital transformation for them. I'm not sure.
You raise a really good point, because we can imagine a company that was born 20 years ago. I mean, if you think 20 years ago, that was the time of ASPs.
Hmm.
And we can have we could have a religious argument about whether that was cloud or not, but let's just say it's online. Okay.
Right. Right.
And we can agree upon that. And it's not too hard to imagine that a company was born at that time, and over the years, they were successful, and they've now built up a stable of customers, business model, revenue streams, all of those things
Mhm.
that are kind of rooted in traditional companies, not born in the cloud companies, but they sort of look a little bit like born in the cloud companies, and they haven't needed to change because,
Mhm.
life is good. And when life is good, we generally don't change. It's so sure, it's possible a company like that needs to undertake digital that is a legacy company at that point, and
Right.
will need to undertake digital transformation.
We talked before. I thought you made a really interesting point about compensation models based on the changes created by digital transformation. And we might even call for a different type of employee. Please explain that one.
The legacy products, services have along with them processes, culture, expectations on the part of customers, expectations on the part of employees. And that's going to be very different from a post transformation set of processes. For
Hmm.
example, a classic example is, let's look at software companies. A software company that was born prior to the cloud, an on-premises software company, had a sales force where they were big game hunters. They were elephant hunters. So you sold a big deal, you received a big check, and you hopefully that customer was happy, but you got your check whether that customer is really happy or not. That was the nature of that beast.
Mm-hmm.
In a subscription model, you don't get that large check up front. You receive a smaller subscription payment, potentially over a longer life cycle. And so the challenge comes in if you have an existing set of salespeople, for example, who are compensated with those big checks.
Right.
And they like those big checks. Hey, what's not to like? I signed this contract and I'm going to get this huge check. What's not to like about that? And now you go to the salesperson and you say, hey, Mary, hey, Joe, great news. We have this new subscription model. You're not going to get the big check up front, but in exchange, you're going to earn more money. It's just going to take some time.
Right.
I'm not so happy about that because maybe the customer is going to leave. Maybe I'm going to leave the company before I receive that benefit. And so it's not just a matter of technology. It's not just a matter of business model, but there's a profound impact on employees when you undertake digital transformation. And that's just one example.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Then there's the really big question, which I hear a lot about these days. It's infrastructure versus talent. I mean, I think obviously technology has come a long way. We've got all these new snazzy tools. And then there's the element of actually the human workforce, which is so hard to find these days. It almost feels to me that the people are winning a bit more these days. Like companies that realize, hey, talent may be even more important than infrastructure. Do you sense that out there?
Well, sure. And it makes perfect sense. Infrastructure is an office building or servers or some type of technology, but those things are meaningless without the people to make the decisions and to run the operations. Mm-hmm. I think there's a growing recognition that culture is really, really important. Keeping your employees happy. It's your employees that will ultimately deliver the results. It's not the technology. Yes, the technology may be an essential foundational element of delivering customer results, but at the end of the day, it's the people. And so as I interview senior business leaders and CEOs on CXO Talk, the clear message is let's take care of our employees first. Mm-hmm. Happy employees will go the extra mile. I just today interviewed the chief human resources officer of Chipotle. And they have 100,000 employees. And she was really, really emphasizing the importance of culture. And then I've spoken with CEOs of software companies, same thing. And in fact, the hardest part about digital transformation is not the technology. It is changing that mindset, bringing people along to accept the fact that we're doing things differently going forward than we did in the past. That requires the support of your employees, and they need to feel that you are invested in them if you want them to be invested in you, the change, and your customers. I think that's just human nature. And so I think there's a growing recognition of that fact.
I think it may be long overdue, in fact. What about the role of the customer in the age of digital transformation? I mean, we often hear that the customer is at the center, but what does that really mean? In one sense, it's always been true. I mean, what in particular is more true about digital transformation?
At the beginning of our conversation, you spoke about digital transformation being a buzzword. Mm-hmm. And when we talk about placing the customer at the center, it's very easy for that to also be a buzzword. Oh, we put the customer in the center. That's core part of our company values. Well, it's a meaningless phrase until it's translated into some sort of action. And so what that means is we need to figure out what our customers want. That means having a different kind of relationship with our customers, understanding how do our customers want to do business with us? Do they want to go into the store? Do they want to go online? What kind of pre-sales support do they want? What kind of post-sales support do they want? How should we design the product and the service that we sell so that it really meets their needs? And can we exchange and share information across departments inside our company so that we can give the customer a very succinct view of their relationship to us? Namely, where is their order? What's the status of their order? Are there other replacements? What's going on? Can we do all of these things? Placing the customer at the center means making business decisions that key off that customer and what the customer cares about as a reference point. Mm-hmm. It means changing our processes, changing our technologies based on what customers want. And that requires having an intimate knowledge of the customer. Mm-hmm. That knowledge can be gained directly by interacting with customers and simply asking them, for example. That knowledge can be gained through the intermediary of data. Mm-hmm. How are our customers interacting with our websites? Where are the customers talking about us with other customers potentially online? Understanding all of these things, observing all of these things, gives us digital footprints, tracks that we can see and interpret to help us understand. In a way, what we're doing is we're developing a kind of empathy for the customer. Mm-hmm. Whether it's, again, direct having that conversation with the customer or making inferences based on data and digital tracks. But that's what it means to place the customer at the center. It means making business decisions, actionable business decisions, according to those reference points.
You use the word data, and I want to make sure that we don't skip over the data piece, because it seems like in every conversation I have these days about enterprise IT, data always comes up. I mean, it didn't used to come up in every single conversation, even 3 or 4 years back. Right now, it's like all roads lead to data. And it seems like data is at the very center of digital transformation. We're not going to run things by gut instinct anymore. We're going to run them all by data. I'm not sure what my question is, but it seems like it's one of the very core of digital transformation is data. And any thoughts on that?
Well, when we talk about digital, we should be talking about data.
Right. That is very true.
So developing the competence, the real core competence to understand what kinds of data are available to us, what kinds of data will be useful to us in making our decisions. For example, we were just talking about the customers. Mm-hmm. Developing the capability to observe what customers are doing with our website, with the emails, for example, that we send to them. What are they clicking on? What are they not clicking on? Things like that. And having the analytical techniques available to us to properly analyze that data then helps point us to additional kinds of data that we might be able to collect to help us understand the customer even further. Mm-hmm. If we want to run a digital business, that means we must collect digital data. Mm-hmm. And if we collect digital data, we have to be intentional about it. We have to be clear about the kinds of data that we're collecting and why we're collecting that data. Just because you have data available to you doesn't mean that it's going to be useful to you or to solve any particular problem that's an important problem. So how do you link that data to the business results that you're trying to achieve? Those business results, that can be, for example, making a profit, obviously, but it can also be to customer satisfaction. It also can be to employee satisfaction. All of these are different slices that you can peel off or look or view the data through a particular lens. And becoming really good at that is difficult, requires specialized skills. It's getting easier as the software vendors release products that make it simpler to do data analytics. But it's really important, and it's a muscle that companies need to really learn how to hone and to flex if they're going to be really successful in this digital world.
Yeah, I think certainly being able to decode data, being able to truly mine data is one of the ultimate competitive advantages. Michael, you've said a lot of good stuff. Closing thoughts and or your view on the future of digital transformation. I mean, if we have this conversation a few years from now, what will we be talking about? Will it all be over? Will it be crazier than ever? What's your sense of it?
Well, it won't be over. Many companies will be more mature in their digital transformation journeys, but I think we'll be talking about customer experience in a couple of years, more so than digital transformation. The reason I say it is this, that digital transformation, as you said, starts with placing the customer at the center.
Mhm.
But the implication is once we've placed the customer at the center and we're now redesigning our products or our processes around what's important to the customer, we will want to take the next step, which is to really redesign our products
Mhm.
and create experiences for the customer. So it's no longer just a baby step or tentative steps. Let's make modifications to the product, but it's how do we create an overarching experience for the customer through their entire journey with us.
Hmm.
And to me, that encompasses digital transformation, but it goes beyond digital transformation as well. Because again, it has implications into the business model, it has implications into compensation. And the farther you go down those journey, down that journey, the stronger those implications, the more powerful those implications become. So
Hmm.
I think that customer experience is the next evolution of digital transformation.
Interesting. I really like that. Michael, I think you said it. It's going to be a really interesting sector to follow in the years ahead. Thank you very much for sharing your expertise. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, James. It's always a great to speak with you.